I was sexually assaulted when I was 14. I went to a party, my first party, and I was sexually assaulted by 3 other boys. I would shut down, my body would freeze. I really didn't understand what love was. And he really is the first person that it took me a long time to be able to love.
I know that you said you didn't have close knitted friends, right? But in terms of the opposite sex, when you were maybe teenage years, early university days, did anyone approach you? How did you handle that?
So I was sexually assaulted when I was 14. I went to a party, my first party, and this wasn't sexual. I don't know what this was, but I disassociated. I was kissing. I let a boy kiss me and it got out of hand, and another boy joined and I let them touch me. And I remember I completely disassociated. And so then I got a reputation in school, and back then they used the word, I don't know if they use it as much anymore, slut. And I went with an older boy to a supposed party, which was a ploy, and I was sexually assaulted by 3 other boys, 4 boys. Or 3 boys, there were 2 other boys there. So then after that, I had trouble having intimate sex. I would shut down, my body would freeze. I would see my father, but finally I did have sex. And then what I did is I kind of looked at it as something to control. Like, I didn't care who I slept with. It was my way of controlling the men. So it was all very messed up. And I write in the book, I ultimately got a boyfriend. In college, I got my first real boyfriend, and he was very nice. But after that, I got married very young, and I only stayed married for like, I don't know, 10 months. And then I was serially monogamous, and I write that I didn't care who I slept next to as long as they could keep the boogeyman away at night. But I could not love. That's what I realized. I could be with people. I never loved intimate sex, but I could have it and pretend, but I couldn't love. I really didn't understand what love was. It took me a long time. I was 42 before I met my husband, that I've been married now for 24 years. So, and together for 25 years. And I had a lot of therapy by then. And he really is the first person that before that I had one other boyfriend who I think I really loved. But it took me a long time to be able to love. Really love. Just be I wasn't a good wife. I wasn't a good girlfriend. I would just stay, look for the next one, and move on. I didn't want anybody coming too close.
Because you were going through trauma. You were relieving it with the men.
And that's the thing. I don't blame myself for any of this.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I feel bad for those people, and in my heart I make amends to them and my prayers. But the reality was I just was too damaged. I write about that in the book. And I write it because I want other people to know. This is part of the signs, and that there is another answer. I think that's my biggest message in this book, is that you cannot pretend your way out of this.
Yes.
No matter how smart or how resilient you think you are, you're not resilient enough. You need to if you have been sexually abused as a child or even as an adult, you need to talk to somebody. There are resources available. I know it's getting harder here in the United States. A lot of the non-for-profits have lost some funding recently, and that is a problem. But there are still some resources, and if you can afford it, get it. And if you can't, really look for it still. At the back of my book, I give the number to RAINN, which is the Rape and Incest National Network. And there's a 24-hour hotline. They can connect people to resources in their communities. I'm lucky in my community. We have the Los Angeles, the Rape Treatment Center, UCLA Rape Treatment Center I'm on the board now, so advisory board. So I feel very proud of that. But we provide 1 year of service to anyone who has been sexually assaulted. over the age of 18 and under the age of 18, not just to the children, but to the non-perpetrating parent. I say that I'm like a walking advert, but I'm a walking advert for a reason, because
Yes.
it's free. And there are other organizations like that, unfortunately, like I said, some of the funding it's getting harder right at this moment in time.
I think it's all over the whole place, even in the UK as well. We have rape crisis. We have non-profit organizations and charities as well that help women who've gone through any form of abuse, whether sexual, physical, psychological. They're there to help as well. So, what you went through when you were with different men, like you said, you wanted to get the boogeyman out of the way, and you were also desensitizing as well. That's a therapeutic terminology or psychological terminology. But I'm happy that you were able to get the necessary help, psychological help, for you to be able to meet the right man who understood where you were coming from, and he was able to help you heal as well. So, and you've been married for close to 25 years now, or 24, 25 years?
24. We've been together 25 years, and in September we'll be married 25 years.
Oh, in September.
4 years. I lose count. I'm old. So we've been together. We met 25 years ago, 25 and a half years ago, and now we'll be married 20. We got married 2001.
Okay. It looks like a long time though.
It's a long time now, and it's definitely, I am quite lucky, both in choice of partners, but I wouldn't have chosen this partner when I was younger.
So, were there times you tried to speak up or drop hints? How
Yes.
was it received?
So there were two times in my life that and over time, but two particular times that I write about in the book. So I talk about my father threatening and I don't really, when I was 11, I started sleepwalking really badly. Another way, so you ask me what comes, it all starts rolling out.
Yeah.
Which was also a sign of what was going on. I would wake up at night, I would scream, I'd wake the family. I mean, it became like night after night. So I really think, wow, even for my parents, it was kind of a crazy decision, but they sent me to a therapist. And I don't know whose idea it was, whether it was her idea. And there's a part of me that hopes it was my mother's idea in her way of getting this all to stop. And then there's another part of me that thinks that it was my father's idea because he was going to paper the file to make sure that I showed up as a crazy, hysterical girl so that there was always something there if I ever when I got old enough to tell. I don't know which. I will never know which, but I did know better than to try to tell this doctor at first. And what happened is my father started getting more aggressive with me physically. I write in the book, and this is, again, trigger warning, but my father never penetrated me as a little girl with his penis. So I kept saying, this isn't rape. It's not rape. It's not. He touched me with his hand and made me touch him. And it makes me, when I read that part of the book, it's really difficult for me to read that particularly. Harder, strangely enough, than the bathtub scene. But as I got older, to right before 12 and a half, 13, almost 13, he tried to kiss me for the first time. I knew by then what sex was, and I thought sex, I didn't really connect. I knew what we were doing was really wrong. I knew that, but I also knew I didn't want him to penetrate me sexually with his penis. I knew that. I was very scared of that, going the next level, because I thought if he goes that level, I'll kill myself. So I tried to tell this therapist that, and I told the therapist that my father said I was sexy, and then I got really scared about it and kind of tried to take it back, but he called them in to talk to them. And so he did not do anything beyond that, but that's when it stopped. My father never touched me again after that. Again, I'm giving away the whole book, but it's better in writing. And so he never touched me again after that. I knew, and that's when he gave me the scarlet letter. My father came back and told me the doctor told him that I have an edible complex, that I was in love with my father, and that I was a very sick girl, and that he had to stay away from me now because I was so sick. And so that was the first time. And I waited to see if the doctor would do, and I never went back. They never sent me back. I waited to see if he would do anything. Now, today in the United States, I don't know if somebody would send the child like they sent me. It would be different because there are reporting requirements. And I'm not a therapist, but my sister is, and she said that would trigger a reporting requirement. And the amount I told my father, someone would have looked further. Now, whether something would have happened, two parents, standing together against a child, who knows, right? So that was the first time, and I did kind of save myself there. And then the second time, when I was in college, I had a full nervous breakdown right after I graduated from college. It was right after I got back from England. And I tried to tell the psychiatrist that I went to a psychiatrist to get medication. My mother helped me at that point. I had nowhere to go, so I went back to my mother's parents' house, and my mother helped me see the psychiatrist and get medication. And I tried to tell him, and he dismissed me and said that I was just confused. And now all of this is a long time ago, so maybe it would be different today, and maybe it wouldn't.
It will be different today, definitely, because it's coming out now that some fathers have incestuous affairs with their children.
I think it would too, but at the time they dismissed it. But I think the point is that a lot of people don't believe. Survivors are still not wholly believed. And he said to me I was confused, that a lot of young girls get confused about. I didn't push it, and I probably could have told him more, but he didn't. He seemed so reluctant to hear more that I was afraid. And so those were the only 2 times I ever tried to tell anyone. And I got shut down. I mean, in a way, for the first one, again, that would be different today, but I just decided no one would believe me, and I didn't tell anyone until I was 33.
Okay, and who did you tell when you were 33? Your therapist?
I went to see a therapist for the first time. Somebody grabbed my breast on a subway, and I had my second breakdown, and I finally went to see a therapist.
Thank you.
And that's when everything switched. That's when my life got saved.
Because you needed to go to therapy very fast.
I ended up going inpatient for a couple weeks wasn't a hospital with it was a program where they dealt with people. A lot of the people in there were adult children of alcoholics, but it was a program that dealt with trauma and children who had survived trauma. And that was my opening to healing. And it's kind of where my book ends, because that's where I open. I mean, my book ends later, just an epilogue, but I finally understood for the first time that I needed to tell people, and not so. It was the opening. Everyone needs an opening to healing.
That's true. Thank you so much for sharing this. Be safe and be positive. And don't forget to check out our social media handles. Thank you. Bye for now.